welcome everybody, it's Karen. I've got a video today that is all about using this absolutely beautiful Christmas poinsettia border die from Paper Rose Studio. So my first project to share with you today is this double Z-fold card. I have also used some alcohol inked up Yupo paper that I've used foil on while it was still tacky. And here I'm die cutting the Christmas poinsettia flourish die set from it, and here is how I shape these flowers. So I've got this little tool, I'll list it down below, and I'm just dragging it from the point into the base. Now you can see here it sort of buckles the paper. The Yupo paper was quite hard. If you didn't have that tool, you could use a stylus like this one with the larger end. But I also use these ball styluses now to shape the inside or the center of the flower. So the other ones I did on the back of the flower, and this now I'm doing on the front. And when you do this, it will curl the center up and around. So this is just to give a little bit of shape to those poinsettias. I did that with all 3 layers. And then I used a hot glue gun to attach the layers together. You could also use glue dots. I've done that before and that also works. I just am running out of glue dots, so I chose my hot glue gun. So you can see I'm carefully putting those together, and while it's still warm, I'm using that ball stylus again to shape that poinsettia and just get that downward curl in it. And then the 3rd layer. Now off camera, I added in some gold beads to these, so I don't show that on the video, but I did do that. So there it is. You can see there's a little bit of a curve and shape. The Yupo paper doesn't really let you do too much. Okay, so for the main card base, you need an 11 by 5.5 inch rectangle of card. And this will make a 5.5 inch square card when it's done. So I'm scoring at 5.5 inches along the 11-inch side, and then halfway back from that, which is 2 3/4 inches. So if you chose to do a different size, it's halfway and then halfway from the middle. Now here I've got a 1 1/4 inch piece of card. It's from that same 8 by 11 piece of card, so it's 11 inches long. And again, I'm scoring it at 5.5 inches and 2 3/4 inches. And that's going to give the double Z to the double Z fold card. So I'm folding the card base right in half and burnishing that. And then along that first score line, you're going to fold that back in the opposite direction. So you get a mountain fold and a valley fold. And I just like to line the edges up, make sure it's nice and straight, and then burnish it. So there you can see the start of that Z fold card. Now, with this extra little piece here, it's got the fold line at the 2 3/4 inch mark, but what you're going to do is rotate that all around, and then it's going to go on in this direction, and that will give you that classic box shape that you get with these double Z fold cards. So I'm folding the middle in half, and then on the right side where the fold line is, I fold that back again. And there you can see how that will go together, and that will give you that box in the middle. It just basically gives you something more to attach things to. Now for the center of that, I ended up cutting out a 5.5 by 5.5 inch square piece of cardstock, and then I die cut from that this Christmas poinsettia border die. I've got the score line. I scored that down the middle at the 2 3/4 inch mark. Originally, I had tried to do this with this one piece of card base, but the problem was you run it through your die cutting machine straight on, and it was really tough going, and I didn't get it cut very well, so this seemed to be the best option. So I've got a piece of this alcohol inked paper. It should be 5.5 by 5.5 inches for what I was doing here. Now I think the easier option is to cut that in half and just use it as panels, but I wasn't thinking at the time. So I'll show you what I did, but really if you just cut that in panels and attach that to the back of the die cuts, that would be much easier. So I'm folding this 5.5 inch panel in half, and I'm putting some double-sided tape on the back of it. And you can see I've already folded and creased that alcohol inked paper. So I'm now lining up that fold line with the fold line on the alcohol inked paper, and then I can press down where I've removed the release paper on that double-sided tape. And then I just glued these die cuts onto the alcohol inked piece. So I'm now going to line that right up with the very center of my card base. And what happens is, you can see here, it's just a little bit too wide. So I just pushed it all the way into the corner or into that fold. And then I used a little pencil to make a mark. And then I knew where to cut it to trim it down. But before I did that, I burnished it again. Now this is where I think if these were just panels, it would make your life a little easier. So maybe keep that in mind. But there you can see I've just trimmed that off and now it fits perfectly. So I'm just going to glue up one side of it and then glue this right down into the corner of my card. And you can see it goes fairly easily now that I've trimmed that down. And then once it's in place, then I could put glue on the other side and fold that up and over and just press that to really seal it. Now here I've got some glue on the left-hand edge of that small border, just for the first half of it, or quarter of it I guess, and I've attached it to the left side, and now I'm attaching the right side, and you just need to line up the bottom and the right side edge. And there you have it. That's the double Z fold card, super easy. Now I've got two little borders here of this alcohol ink. They're 3/4 of an inch wide by 5.5 tall. And I'm just going to put those on either edge, and I covered right over that bottom border there. So just glued those in place, and I've got little teeny tiny strips of gold mirror card that I'm attaching on the side. And then here's the finished card. So they're the poinsettias with the beads in it. And those flourishes are just cut from gold mirror cardstock. It's from that Christmas poinsettia flourish die set that the poinsettias are from. You can see the bulk of this. So there is definitely some bulk in it. That's the chunky Merry Christmas sentiment there. And that's all I've done. So there they are. All the dies that I've used on this one. But I really think that border die is so pretty, and I like that when this card is closed, when you open it up, that's a little bit of a surprise to see that the Christmas poinsettia border die on the inside there. So I was just showing you there's lots of room to write a message on the back, and there's a close-up view of all of the die cuts. Okay, here's another idea for you. It's a Christmas Lumiere. So for this one, I have got two pieces. Now this is 120 pound cardstock, so quite solid cardstock. It's 6.25 inches by 5.5 inches tall, and I'm scoring it at 3 inches and 6 inches, and I have two of these panels. So they're both going to get scored in the same place. Now I'm lining it up on my grid mat here, and so I can see where the fold line is in the middle, and I'm centering this die right between the left-hand edge and where that fold line is. And I've run that through the die cutting machine, and then again I'm lining up this side as well. So between that fold line, oh, and I'm just checking here that I've got the orientation of the die going the same way. So between the crease or the fold line and that flap on the right, now I folded the flap under to get it through my die cutting machine. And so I've cut all 4 panels in exactly the same way, tried to keep the die oriented the same way. And now I've cut 4 panels of 5.5 by 2.25 inch vellum, and those will just go on the back of the die cut pieces. And I've also cut 4 pieces of, now this is thick acetate, 5.5 inches by 2 3/4 inches. And this will just help, it goes on the inside and it will help to give a bit more structure to the Lumiere. There's so much cut out with this die cut because it's on 4 panels, so the acetate does help. Now I'm trying out this new pen from Nuvo. It did seem to work fairly well. You kind of press it down and then the ink starts to flow, and so then you just spread it on. So I've got it on a piece of backing or release paper, and it seemed to work quite well. And I'm just putting the vellum on top of that. I did get a bit of glue that came through. Now I don't know if that was me, if I moved it. So on the front I ended up using my gum eraser to get some of that glue off, but overall I thought it worked fairly well to glue all those little pieces down. So there you have it, that's the front. So I did that to all 4 panels, and now I've put some red line tape on each of the panels behind, and I'm going to attach my acetate with that. So I've removed the release paper at the top there on those 2, just kind of folded them over, and then I line up the bottom with the bottom of the panel. Oh, and I'm cleaning it first, just in case. And so there you can see I'm lining up the bottom edge, and then you press it down, and then I just make sure it's nicely pressed, and then I press it right into that red line tape that's exposed. And so once you've got that, then you can I sort of hold it with the heel of my hand and then just pull the release paper off. And then I think you want to burnish this once you've got it down, just to really make sure that tape adheres to the acetate. So I've got all my panels covered with the acetate, and now I'm going to fold that center fold and burnish it. And I have already folded the side flaps under, but I've put some double-sided tape on them now, on both flaps, on both the 2 panels, and I'm just burnishing that. So you can see that's going to be 1/2 of the Lumiere. Now here I'm using that same thick acetate, and I've cut a 4-inch square, and I'm using a ball stylus just to really, or embossing stylus I guess. I'm scoring it at 1/2 inch in, so at the 3.5 inch mark on all 4 sides. So it should look like that. Now this is going to be the base of the Lumiere. So on one side I'm cutting straight up that score line to the first score line. These are going to be little tabs. So I'm going to cut a tiny little wedge out of those just to help them fold a bit, as easily as possible. So on both sides. And then you're going to rotate that 180 degrees, so you're getting the complete opposite side, and doing exactly the same thing again. So cutting up that score line right to the first one, and just take a little wedge out. And that's the last side. So when you're done, you should have something that looks like this. You can see where the wedges have come out. And then what you want to do is put some red line tape on each of those flaps. And then you're going to fold the flaps down so the tape is on the outside, and burnish each of the creases. And now here, to get the tab to attach, I've removed the release paper. I'm holding the corners even and just pushing the tab up and over. That red line tape really sticks really well, so once you've got it attached, it'll stick. So there you can see I've got the corners lined up, and then I just push the tab over. And so once you've done all 4 of those, you've got this box shape, which will be the bottom of the candle holder. And now for these panels, I'm checking the orientation, making sure I've got them all going the right way. The flaps should never be joining up together, so if you have that happening, you've probably got it turned around. So here I'm removing the release paper, and I've butted up the 2 sides together, making sure the top and the bottom are even, and I'm just pushing that flap over and burnishing it. Now to put the base on, I've taken the release paper off that bottom holder, and I'm lining it up between the fold where the flap is there on the left and the fold line on the right. And as long as the bottom edge is nice and even, you should be okay. So it should all line up along the bottom. Then I'm taking the release paper off, and you just end up rotating it. So you've got a chance here to really line it up with that bottom edge and right to the fold line. And again, here's the third edge. So folding it right over, watching that bottom and making sure it just goes to the crease. Now on this last one, you want to be sure that you've got the flap down and attached. So there I'm just pushing it onto that red line tape, and then I can remove the rest of that release paper and then fold that right back down, and the edges should meet. And I haven't removed the release paper on the long side of that yet. So here I'm just removing that release paper along the edges and just lining those edges up. And once you've got them lined up, you can press the edges together. And then I used my bone folder to just reach inside and really make sure all those joins were sealed. And there you have it. It's such a pretty die, this one. So it's got quite a bit of sturdiness because of that acetate. Now you definitely don't want to use a regular candle for this. You'll cause a fire, so just a battery operated candle will work. And there you have it. So here is what it looks like. I've turned my lights off a bit so you get a little bit of an idea, but it really is quite a pretty candle holder. So thank you so much for joining me again, everyone. I hope I've given you some ideas here. That is just a beautiful die from Paper Rose Studio. Have a great day, everybody. I hope you have fun crafting. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.